Imagine you were given everything. Unlimited food, unlimited water, a safe home, no predators, no war, no hunger, no need to fight for survival. Sounds like paradise, right? Now imagine that, somehow, everyone in that paradise slowly stopped caring. Mothers abandoned their children. Some individuals became violent. Others completely isolated themselves. And eventually, entire society disappeared. This wasn't a movie. It was part of a series of experiments conducted by scientist John B. Calhoun. And one experiment, known as Universe 25, became famous for asking a terrifying question. What happens when a society has everything it needs, except a meaningful way to live? In the late 1960s, Calhoun created what looked like the perfect world for mice. Food, unlimited, water, always available, shelter, plenty of it. There were no predators, no dangerous weather, no shortage of resources. The mice didn't need to hunt. They didn't need to escape. They didn't need to compete for food. All they had to do was live. Calhoun introduced a small population of healthy mice, and at first, everything went perfectly. The mice explored, they built social groups, they reproduced, their population began growing. For a moment, Universe 25 looked like proof that if you removed suffering, society could become perfect. But then, something strange happened. Even though there was still plenty of food, problems had already begun. Population continued growing, but as more mice entered the environment, their social world became increasingly complicated. Imagine living in a massive building. There is enough food for everyone, enough water for everyone, enough physical space to survive. But every single day, you are surrounded by hundreds of people. You can't escape the social pressure. You can't avoid the conflicts. And slowly, normal rules of society begin breaking down. This is where Calhoun observed disturbing changes in social behavior. Some mice became unusually aggressive. Others withdrew. Some mothers showed disrupted maternal behavior. Young mice struggled to establish normal social roles. And here's the strange part. The food was still there. Nobody was starving. So why was the society beginning to fall apart? That question led to one of Calhoun's most famous ideas: the behavioral sink. A behavioral sink is basically the idea that when a population experiences intense social disruption, normal behavior can begin to collapse. Think about a crowded elevator. One stranger enters. No problem. 5 people enter. Still manageable. But imagine being trapped in that elevator for your entire life. Eventually, it's not just the lack of physical space that affects you. It's the constant interaction, the inability to establish normal relationships, the competition for social position, the conflict, the stress. In Universe 25, Calhoun observed that as the mouse society changed, some mice became increasingly disconnected from normal social life. And then appeared perhaps the most famous group of all. They became known as beautiful ones. And their behavior was deeply strange. These mice largely withdrew from normal social interaction. They avoided fighting. They avoided mating. They avoided competition. They spent much of their time eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves. Their bodies looked healthy. Their fur looked clean. They appeared physically perfect. But socially, they had almost disappeared. Imagine a person who has everything they need. They eat, they sleep, they watch entertainment, they take care of their appearance. But they stop building relationships, stop taking risks, stop creating anything, stop competing for anything. Their life becomes comfortable, smaller, and smaller, until survival is no longer the problem. Purpose is. Now, we need to be careful here. Universe 25 was an experiment on mice, not humans. So we cannot simply say, this proves humans will eventually destroy themselves if life becomes too easy. It doesn't prove that. The experiment does raise a fascinating question. Can a society survive on comfort alone? Eventually, something even more alarming happened. The population stopped growing, even though food was unlimited, even though there was still shelter, even though the environment remained physically safe. Reproduction declined. And when fewer young mice successfully entered normal social life, society had a serious problem. Because every civilization depends on more than keeping individuals alive. It depends on passing behaviors from one generation to the next. Imagine a society where children grow up without learning how to become parents. Then they have children of their own, but they also don't know how to raise them. Now imagine that cycle repeating. At some point, problem is no longer hunger. It's no longer disease. It's no longer predators. The society begins losing the behaviors that helped it continue. Calhoun described aspects of this broader decline with another haunting idea. A kind of social breakdown that he called the second death. And this might be the most disturbing part of the entire experiment, because the physical bodies could still be alive, while the social behaviors necessary for the population to continue had already collapsed. So, are humans living inside our own universe 25? Probably not. And anyone who tells you that this mouse experiment perfectly predicts the future of humanity is oversimplifying it. Humans are far more complex. We create cultures, we change our environments, we invent new social systems. We can consciously respond to problems. But the experiment still gives us something worth thinking about, because humans don't just need food. We don't just need safety, we don't just need comfort, we also need connection, responsibility, challenges, a sense that what we do matters. Imagine two people. The first has unlimited entertainment, unlimited food, and never has to do anything difficult. The second has problems to solve, people who depend on them, skills to learn, goals to chase. Which person is more likely to feel that their actions actually matter? Comfort can make life easier, but if comfort removes every challenge, what replaces the challenge? Universe 25 began as paradise. No hunger, no predators, no shortage. Everything the mice needed to survive was right in front of them. And yet, survival was not enough. Their society changed, their relationships broke down, their population eventually declined. So maybe the real lesson isn't a perfect society will always destroy itself. Maybe it's something more unsettling. Maybe a society isn't held together only by the things that keep us alive. Maybe it's also held together by the things that give us a reason to live. And that leaves us with one final question. If tomorrow, every problem in your life disappeared, would you finally become free? Or would you have no idea what to do next?